Thank you for tuning in for Season 2, Episode 7, It Takes Two to Tango. Today's guest is Leah Aguirre, a licensed clinical social worker, and today we're going to discuss how we can be intentional with our time as individuals and as a partner in a relationship. Leah Aguirre is a California native and currently resides in San Diego, California. Leah attended the University of California, Santa Barbara, where she graduated with a bachelor's degree in psychology, and shortly after attended San Diego State University, graduating with a master's of social work. Leah is a licensed clinical social worker and has been practicing as a psychotherapist for over 7 years, working primarily with individuals who have experienced complex trauma and struggle with mental health challenges. She is trained in eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, EMDR for short, an evidence-based practice used to address trauma, PTSD, and other anxiety disorders. Leah currently works at a community-based clinic and has her private practice where she offers individual therapy. Leah specializes in supporting women survivors of abusive or unhealthy relationships and women navigating and conquering the dating world. Leah is passionate about women's mental health and wellness, and her goal and mission are to help women clear trauma and develop self-love and acceptance. She currently has a blog, Modern Dating, on Psychology Today, and is known on Instagram as Your Modern Therapist. Please welcome Leah Aguirre. Hey y'all, it's Sarah Joyner, the social worker, and today I'm with your modern therapist, Leah Aguirre. Thank you so much for being here, Leah. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, I am a licensed clinical social worker in California. I am working at a community clinic full-time and in private practice part-time. And I live in San Diego.
It's so pretty there.
Yeah, it's really nice. Really warm.
What a great place to be a social worker. It's so beautiful there.
It's true. Not a bad place to live.
So tell me a little bit about in your bio, you were undergrad psychology major. What made you make that transition to social work?
Yeah, so I love psychology, and both my parents are actually social workers. So
okay.
My mom's a psychotherapist, and my dad was in administration and worked for the county, and he's retired now. But he really that social work lens, like in the macro stuff that he did, was kind of what drew me interested into social work. So I studied psychology. I really love psychology, and I was actually looking at other like degrees like MFT or like psychologist, but I did like a part-time job between undergrad and graduate school, and I did some more social work like things. I also took sociology courses in undergrad, and really appreciated having a more macro lens and understanding systemic like systems that impact individuals. So it was a combination of things, but really when I did the work between undergrad and graduate school, and I was like deciding between MFT and MSW, Master's in Social Work, I realized I really wanted to do the MSW because it gives you a different lens, and you understand a person as part of a bigger culture, like a family culture, societal culture, bigger system. So I really appreciated that lens. And yeah, my parents both really had a huge influence and also in deciding to take that route as well. And their values and what they instilled in me growing up, I've always really took to them and carried them, and social work really, I would say, reflects those values.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's great that you were social work's kind of like that middle ground between psychology and sociology. And so you're kind of able to marry the two, especially since you're in therapy now. I think that's awesome. And it's awesome that your parents support you being a social worker. Because I think when I told my parents I wanted to be a social worker, they were like, you're going to work for CPS?
Right.
Like, you're not going to make any money. You're going to be poor the rest of your life. And I was like, no, there's so much more to it. And it's so great seeing other people in the field.
They had a solid, they understood it. And they also knew that there are actually a lot of venues and different things you could do with it. So they were all for it. And my family we were never, yes, it's not like a money-making field by any means, but I think they were never super materialistic, and that's appreciated. So it's not like I had these high aspirations to be like a billionaire or a millionaire.
Right.
Yeah.
But to be happy.
For sure. Yeah.
And soul fulfilled.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So you also have a blog.
Yes.
can you talk a little bit about your blog? What inspired you to do it? What do you talk about?
Yeah. So actually, my own dating and relationships throughout my 20s, I'm in my early 30s now, made me want to write about my experiences. And people always joked about that. So I did a lot of dating. And I guess it was like, you should write a book about this. And it's been like the running joke. And my friends like love my dating experiences. I like am probably one of my few single friends left. And it's like, they just love hearing about it. But
living really, vicariously through you.
Yes and no. I think they find it entertaining. And like those that have been in long-term relationships are like kind of mind blown by some of the encounters I've experienced. Like just, it's being single and dating during this time on dating apps. And it's just, I think it reinforces a lot of like societal norms and gender stereotypes and expectations, especially for women. So anyways, it was like one of those things where we always joked about it. Like you could write a book and people find it like so interesting. And and so it's like, it's really like, I believe in like disclosure, self-disclosure, not during session as much, but like even just relating, like I've struggled with anxiety and being able to share that aspect with someone to normalize their experiences, because often as therapists, we're looked at as like the expert and like the authority person. I never want to be that person. Like I want to provide skills, perspectives, and like reflect, but I never want to be seen as like better than. I'm totally not. And like that's not my role. So I wanted to kind of like, you mentioned with like psychology and social worker, like our societal sociology, marry the two. Like I wanted to do that. So I wanted to find a way that I could use my own experiences as well as my knowledge of mental health, like trauma, self-esteem, like family values, culture, and how that impacts the dating experience.
Yes.
Because I struggled with that a few years ago and was totally like, I lost myself to dating and to trying to be someone that I was not. And so that's something I've reflected in my blog, but also talk about like the skills and like the change in mindset and perspective that I've had to like date more successfully, in a sense of like, I'm not losing myself in it. I'm being super intentional about it. Yeah.
Yeah. And so what, I guess you also talk about, and you just touched on it, but being like intentional with your dating, what does that kind of mean?
So with like the dating apps, for example, and I'm nothing against them because I think most people are actually on them now than they're not, that are single.
I met my fiance that way.
Yeah. No, I mean, most people do that. There's nothing wrong with it. But I think the thing is like it kind of perpetuates like the need for fast results or
instant gratification.
Yes, you're like swiping all the time, you're liking all the time, you're like, and it's very compulsive, and people have become addicted to it. And what's interesting is what I've learned like through reading, and then also I would say through my own experiences previously, is like not that they don't want you to find love, but it's a business. Like the apps are a business, and you to swipe constantly, and they want you to really engage with the app. And so I think we lose sight of why we're on it for a lot of us. And you really have to be super intentional and mindful about how you're seeking a potential partner. And I think too, so the intentionality is really, I talked to a lot of clients about this. It's really like really focusing on what you want. So if you want something casual, that's okay. Like that's totally fine, but it's putting that out there. It's really having those conversations with people, or it's adding that filter, whatever. But really knowing what you want, and then having that reflected in your profile, and then in these conversations during the early stages, being super transparent. And like, I think the thing is like, it's not to shame people that want something casual, but if you get propositioned, it's like, thank you. Like I don't know, like, thank you, I'm flattered, or like, thank you, but no thank you. Like, I appreciate you being honest. And the honesty is like the best part, because then you can make an informed decision that you don't want to meet with this person or have more of a conversation.
Right, exactly. And then it's kind of like in your hands, and you're able to give yourself those boundaries. So I don't know how your friends are, but like, my friends, they've like come to me for dating advice, and I've been out of the dating game for a while, but I still want to be supportive of their experiences. So how can friends of actively dating people, how can we be supportive as they go through this journey?
Yeah, I think especially if you've been out of the dating game for a while, I think what I've seen, both I've experienced and then with clients, is like when you have your friends that have been with their significant other for like years, you're like, you have no idea.
Yeah.
The day-to-day like is like, right? And so
Yeah.
I think it's important for friends to keep it real. Like, so I also a few things. I think friends need to be super honest.
Mm-hmm.
So if they see you in something that's unhealthy or something that there are a few red flags that they're noticing,
Right.
and they know you, especially good friends, they know you and they know what's good for you or what will be like what will give or add more to your life versus take away.
Mm-hmm.
So I think like for friends to keep it real and just be like, you know, this isn't working, this is working, or like I see you miserable. Like, is this, you know what I mean? And
sometimes you need that friend.
For sure. I know, and I just had a discussion with one of my good friends, and I told her I appreciated the last relationship I was in, her giving her honest feedback, because it's something I knew, but I think when you hear from someone else, it's just, you need that confirmation. So there's that. And then I think too, the thing that a lot of people have a hard time is when they're like, just focus on you, like just focus on you. Don't, like, you're not ready to date, or like, you know, date once you like work on yourself. And the thing is, when you say that, it's almost like you're broken, or that you don't deserve to be in a relationship, or like you're not good enough now. But the thing is like, I totally think you need to work on yourself, like yourself, love yourself before you go into a relationship. While at the same time, there needs to be like a, I don't know, like we're all growing and we're all working on ourselves. And,
all the time.
Yes. Yes.
And I think it's really important, and something that my fiance and I try really hard to do is to be individuals, but to be like a unit at the same time. So like you said, like taking that time to love yourself, you don't necessarily have to close yourself off from the world or the dating aspect of it, but still taking that time to say, this is what I want in life, this is how I want to grow, and then bring those positives to your relationship.
Totally. And this is where I see a lot of people struggle, is when they devout everything they have and everything they are to a person, and they lose sight of everything else that they had going on. And like a few years ago, and I reflect this in my blog, like I was there, like not even to a person because I was dating, but like dating became a whole life. And like, who really wants a partner that has no like sense of self, right?
Right. Exactly.
Plan anyone to make you happy wholeheartedly. So no, I totally think that's a great way that you and your fiance are navigating it, because it's good to be communicative and work together as a unit because you're a family, while at the same time maintaining like your own personal goals and values and interests.
And and I mean, I've been there, lost myself in previous relationships, and I think it did more harm to the relationship because I no longer had that sense of self. And so it just kind of, we were just floating through the motions. It was no like actively participating. And I think now that I'm like, okay, Sarah, this feels good or this doesn't, I feel like more fulfilled as a person and as a partner.
And I think that's something like that, what you said just there is like what feels good and what doesn't feel good. I think as women, and again, not to generalize, but we are socialized to like be what our partners want us to be. So like look pretty, like be quiet, or like just appease them, be easygoing, you know what I mean? Or be a bitch. Like it's like one of the, it's like you can't win. So there's like, there's a pressure to be like one way or another, and doing what feels right. So I do think too, a lot of people lose themselves in the sense of they're trying to be what their partner wants or what they think their partner wants, or even as they're dating, like trying to put on this persona or this like facade of who they think that a potential partner wants to see in them.
Right. And it shouldn't be like that. It should be like who you want to be.
Right.
And let that person, whoever it might be, if they don't accept you, then as hard as it is,
totally,
just keep moving.
And I think it's just, and that's the writing piece again, is like, I think there's more coming out, but there are a lot of books previously that really focus on how to get the guy, or like how to be attractive, how to be sexy. Like, and I did write about this too, is the Why Men Love Bitches. Like, this is a book that people keep buying. Like, I've had a client recently told me that they bought it. And so it was one of those things where it's still, there's still that like, that culture and that reference that you have to be a certain way to be attractive or desirable or to be good enough.
Yeah.
And that's so draining when you're pretending to do that for like,
and
it doesn't.
Expensive.
It is.
It's so expensive if you're trying to be somebody else.
Yeah, both. Tiring, it's emotionally draining, it's financially draining. Yeah. You lose friends and like you lose sight of things that were important to you. Yeah, totally.
And I mean, growing up kind of, and I don't know if you were like really big into Disney and stuff too, but I think it's also portrayed how women should be too, like this Disney fairy tale of the men should save you. And I think that's really harmful.
For sure. And you're looking for your other half that makes you whole because you weren't whole before. And I think there's something to be said about finding like a person, whether it's a soulmate or just someone that really just that fills you up, builds you up, like really makes you feel good about yourself, and that adds to your life, and that you can experience life together. But to say you aren't whole or that you aren't good enough until you meet this person, which it is portrayed in a lot of Disney. They're kind of trying to move in a different direction, which is good. Yeah, but totally, this is reinforced all the time. It's reinforced in all the like sitcoms and everything. It's
my gosh, yeah.
Everything that we grew up watching, like all the romantic comedies, like it's ridiculous, you know? And so no, it's totally, it's again, like it's super, I think, subconscious too, that we're seeing this. And we see this also in, I mean, like family dynamics, relationships, like what we see our friends doing, what we see like our parents or our siblings or our extended family doing, like the values that they place on relationships, you know. Like, this is
and culturally too. Culturally, like if you're in a certain culture, you got to be married by this age and have your babies, and you see women that are struggling between honoring their culture but also like honoring themselves in this modern society. So
totally.
Those can get complicated too. Talking about relationships, what is a healthy relationship? Because when I think of healthy, it's like, okay, you don't hit each other and you have like decent conversations, but it's so much deeper than that, I'm sure.
No, and I think we like, so if you think of I think we see domestic violence or like domestic abuse as like bruises and black eyes and like the physical piece, but so I think we'll start with like unhealthy is not just the physical, it's being emotionally abused, it's being mentally abused and manipulated, it's feeling less than around your partner all the time, feeling like you have zero control or power in the relationship. So a healthy relationship, both people, well, and it's certain people have preferences and they actually like the traditional gender roles. So I think if that's the case, then but it's, again, that's like so it's like very complicated, but that's like kind of like you're making informed consent. Like, you know what I mean? For example, say you're like, I do want to be this wife that takes care of her husband. That's totally fine. As long as you're saying that's what you want to do, it's not like forced upon you. Totally. Yeah. Like, and yeah. So like, as long as both mutually agreed upon, like some people want to do that. That's what they want in a partner and a relationship, and that's fine. But in a healthy relationship, I think in general, like both people are mutually respected. Like you respect one another. You communicate regularly. You're able to air your grievances and your feelings openly and not be worried about what that will lead to or feel like you'll get in trouble for doing that. Those conversations aren't always easy, but like the ability that you can initiate those conversations is huge. So I think open conversations and just the idea of like being equitable, you might bring different things and have different roles or like responsibilities in the relationship that you negotiate, but you're equals. Like you both have decision making. Yeah, definitely. And I think that's something that I had to learn. It wasn't just something that, okay, like I had a picture in my head of what it was supposed to be like, but then when you're actually working in tandem with another person, it's like, okay, how do you learn? How do you communicate? There's so much effort that goes into it. And I think like you mentioned, like culturally and like that comes into play, like how you communicate. Like some people don't learn or their families didn't communicate. Like you just don't have conversation. So, you don't talk about it. Yeah. And I think it's really just the willingness to work through these things with your partner and like work on communication. Like I think that's a piece that I talk to a lot of individuals about, both as they're dating and in relationships. It's like, is this person willing to work on these things with this with you? Because maybe they didn't have the skills, or they didn't grow up with the ability to like talk about their feelings because they weren't role modeled that, or they, you know, they learned that men don't share their feelings, men don't cry. Like, so it's something that they have to work on or work towards if they're open to it. And as long as someone's open to working with you and shifting and learning, I think that's healthy.
Yeah. What? So, oh, go ahead. I couldn't hear you.
There's no perfect person.
Like, oh no. No. I am far from perfect. Far from perfect. So, you know, kind of talking again on unhealthy relationships, abusive relationships. For somebody who's currently struggling with, should I leave, or they're in this position where they don't really know if it's unhealthy, but it doesn't sit right with them. What are some things that you would say to that individual going through something like that?
It's really complicated because it depends on, I think, the situation. I think a lot of, and again, I don't want to generalize, this is very like cis heteronormative, but the idea of like, it's happening majority to women in a lot of the time in heterosexual relationships. But I think in both, but I'm just giving the example of someone who's financially dependent on a partner. It's hard to leave, and they don't even have to be married. So in a lot of the time in an emotionally or mentally abusive relationship, that person's like stripped of all of their power by their partner. Like, so they might be financially abused, so they might like have zero access to their own money, even if they work. They might be isolated from their friends and family, and so that isolation piece is really hard to leave. And it's really scary. So even if they know they can, to leave a situation where they feel isolated, maybe they have not been in communication or really open with their friends and family, there's like a lot of shame, a lot of guilt. So it's, I mean, I think safety is always the most important. I think to know the resources, to know the resources and services that are available, to talk to a professional and figure out a way to leave, like in a safe way, is important.
Right. Very
That's really important. If it's something that's not like super safe, there's not immediate safety issues. I think just like really, and I think a lot of it comes down to shame and embarrassment, and also like when you become like almost fused with a person, it's really, really hard to really trust your judgment and intuition. And I think that's what I see a lot with women is like, I don't even know like what my favorite color is, let alone like, do I have the ability to make a decision that's best for me or to leave? Like, I don't know if it's best for me. That's what it comes down to. So really, I think for people in that situation, it's like talking to a therapist or like, and I think that's helpful for a lot of women because in those situations, they're not open with their friends or family a lot of the time. They're really not. So to talk to someone who you have complete confidentiality and privacy, and you can like be as open and transparent with them, that's really key. Because then you have like someone who doesn't know either side, they're completely unbiased, but they also have like knowledge of the dynamics. So really, and I think too, I talked to a lot of people about it's like reflecting on your values, and it might be embarrassing to you or like shaming. It might feel that way, but like a lot of people don't want to be in that situation where they're feeling trapped. Like they don't want to spend the rest of their life like that. So it's really like processing their values and like where they're at, and are they living in line with what they had planned for or what they would like for their future. But it's not super simple. It's very, very complex. Like,
very, very complex, and a lot of work has to go into it once you do find that trust in yourself. And then when you do get ready to go out into the dating game again, I know when I left a not so healthy relationship, it was like almost having to trust myself enough to choose somebody who was a decent human being that wasn't gonna make me feel trapped. But it's hard if you're carrying a lot of baggage around with you to every relationship.
Sure. No, and I see that a lot. It's like a lot of people are like, well, how do I know that I won't make the same mistake? Or there's a lot of like, and it makes sense. Like there's a lot of like, well, I found this person, like how do I avoid this completely? And that makes sense. Like there's a lot of fear in that, and that makes sense completely. But it's like working on like easing into relationships. I always talk about that too. Like what I see a lot of in the clients that I work with that like dive into relationships really quickly are those the ones that are typically unhealthy because it's so fast. There's like so much like passion and excitement, and it's like hard not to slow it down. Like it's just you're kind of like taking, like you're on it. You're like I'm on this ride, like I'm ready, and
like a really good high, and you're just
exactly
like, taking it where it goes.
Yeah, that like always crashes and burns typically. Not always like in violence, but like just it doesn't sustain. Like in a long-term relationship, like it's not rainbows and butterflies all the time. It's not fireworks. Like there's chemistry and there's connection, but it's not always like, it's not always a good time in a sense of like that high that you're going to get. Yeah. So I think it's like learning to slow it down and like learning that you can slow it down. I think a lot of women, especially again, back to the apps, things move so quickly and you kind of feel like obligated to move at this oddly quick pace. Yeah. And so again, being intentional and being like, I'm going to slow it down. Like I don't have to go on a date with this person for another week or two if I don't want to, or figure out how long I need to feel comfortable with them, you know?
Right. Yeah. Like feel it out for yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, it's kind of like crazy to think that there's like a world, well, I don't know, like I dated people because I met them organically through school or something. Yeah. And then, like I said, I met my fiance on a dating app. So how do you date in this modern world without apps?
Yeah.
Like where does somebody start?
And this is funny because I actually talked to about this with my own therapist like a couple years ago when I first started her, and I was just like, because she was saying, and it was funny because she's a little bit older, and she was like, you know, people like would like have like business cards. Like people would be like, here's my business card.
Yeah, like here, call me sometime.
Right. And you're not like constantly waiting on your phone, or you don't have your smartphone on you all the time that you have access to at all times in constant communication. So it's really hard. I think too, it's like, it's being open and doing things again that you love and that you're passionate about, or that things that are of importance to you. So I tell people, if you don't want to do the apps, that's totally fine. I mean, people are single and not on apps, or they're still on apps and still out in the world living their life. So it's really doing things that are important to them. So if you're spiritual, it's like maybe you get connected to your church or like, you know, community, and just network, and not even to meet the person right away, but you're going to meet like-minded people, singles or people your age that might know someone as they get to know you. And same thing with, like you said, like through school, so through graduate programs, or a lot of the time people meet others through work. Yeah. So I really just think it's being open and doing things as you would, and things that like feel good for you. So a lot of people, you know, if they're into like, I don't know, like, and I'm just giving this as an example, like rock climbing and stuff like that, and just building a community within that, not in the always with the intention of like meeting someone immediately, but building community and networking, and then knowing you'll meet like-minded people through those communities.
Exactly.
Yeah, it is harder, but people are doing it. But not necessarily right at this moment, but
well, maybe they're doing like Zoom meetings, and they're like, hey, you're kind of cute, like let's go into the other Zoom meeting and talk.
Right. Yeah.
It's an interesting world out there, but you know how you were saying, like building a community, there's healthy and unhealthy friendships too. Yes. So you're finding like-minded people who are enjoying things that you do. You're building like the foundation for a healthy friendship, if nothing else.
Totally.
And I think that's super important.
Yeah, and I think too, something I talk to a lot of people about is like, you're single, yes, but that's like one piece or aspect of you in your life. Yeah. So instead of focusing all of your energy and attention on that, you still need to live your life. Like, and I think that's what I was like a few years ago, like 5 or 6 years ago, I was not doing that. Like I would, and I talk about this in my blog, and like I've talked about this openly with a lot of my friends and peers, is like I consume myself with that. And it's just so like, there was other stuff involved with like my own self-concept and sense of self-worth. But really, like, again, the apps don't make it easy or make it any easier because you're swiping. You have lots of people at the tip of your fingertips. But the idea of like still living your life, and also when you're living your life and enjoying it and really living in line with your values and things that are important to you, you're doing things you enjoy, you feel good generally. You feel like more confident. You just feel better about yourself. You're in a better mood. And like those are all really great things to bring to a relationship. So if anything's going to motivate you at all, then just like
do it. It's good for you.
It's good for you, and your partner, your future partner will love it. Because like those are, because you, again, like you said, you don't want to lose yourself in a relationship. So it's important to build that foundation.
Yes.
Yeah.
Preach, girl.
Yeah.
It's not for you. It's not for Leah. So I definitely, like, for me, I'm definitely taking away, one, how I can be a better friend, because I do have friends that are dating right now, or they come to me for advice, and I'm just like, girl, I don't know, like, do you like him? That's cool, or he's cute, whatever. But I, like you said, I don't understand the daily, what's going on in the dating world every day. So I'm definitely taking away how to be a better friend, but I'm also taking away with, like, it's okay to trust yourself to say, like, this doesn't feel good, or this does feel great, and I'm going to keep doing it, and be intentional in what I do. I might not be actively dating, but I can be intentional within my relationship. And I think that's, I don't know, I feel very inspired to be a more intentional partner.
Yeah. I think just like in general, being more mindful with our time. Like, again, I think it's a weird time for the world right now. And it's hard to be super intentional, as a lot of people are like very anxious, overwhelmed, like fearful. And so I think just in general, being intentional with our time is super important if you are in a relationship, or just your own mental health and sanity as well.
Yes, definitely. So before we wrap up, I always ask two questions. The first one is, what are you taking away from today?
I mean, I think I appreciated some of the questions that you asked about, like, what can a friend do? Or like, if you're in a relationship and may have had some experiences, like, you can still learn and grow. So I appreciate that, like, people are being mindful of what they can tell their friends that are dating or in relationships, or even feel more comfortable in like navigating tough conversations and being honest. Like, I think that's a great question that you asked, because I think friends generally care and they want to be good supports. And I think it's great that you pose that question, so then people have a better idea of how they can help their friends or support their friends navigating it. And then again, too, like, just because you're in a relationship doesn't mean you can't practice these things. Like, it really is important to like be intentional with your time, like be mindful of things that are important to you while you're still in a relationship. You can still have a like wonderful relationship and also be completely independent in a sense, and have your own personal interests and things that you do. And so, no, I just appreciate you acknowledging that, because then I think sometimes two people get into the relationship and then they're like, okay, I'm good, like, where everything's great, and
that's it, we're getting married and we're gonna have kids, and
and that's amazing. And no, those are wonderful things. But I think too, especially as you have a family and have kids, you still want to be intentional with your time. You still want to make sure that both parties are communicating and growing and learning with each other.
Yes, definitely. And you don't want to get yourself lost and being like a family unit, and then heaven forbid something happen, and it's just you as yourself, kind of like, what happened, where did I go?
No, and that's a good point. I tell that, actually, that's something I'm like, I'm not trying to be morbid, not like, but like, we don't know what the next day holds,
especially in these times.
Absolutely.
We have no idea. Like, we could walk outside and who knows what's next. Sharks flying from the sky.
Yeah, exactly. So if you can be at least comfortable in your own skin and secure in who you are, that will help you navigate anything, really, at least a little bit of ease. Knowing like you have more confidence in yourself. Yeah, totally.
Definitely. And then the second question, what, if anything, what's like the number one thing that you want people to walk away with today?
I think just prioritizing themselves. Like, I think people feel like self-care or self-love is like very indulgent. And I have a lot of people ask, like, well, is that narcissistic? And like, absolutely not. So it's super important to prioritize yourself and your own needs and what's important to you. And you can't really be the best partner or family member or friend or like colleague or whatever if you're not taking care of yourself. So like, that at the end of the day, like, you can't look at it yet as like being something you just need to do for the sake of your own well-being. Know that you'll be able to be a better person for everyone. Yes. Yeah. If you take care of it.
I mean, it goes back to like the airplane analogy, like put your gas mask on first.
Yeah.
If you don't do anything else, just put yours on first, because once you're alive and taken care of, you can make sure those around you are okay too.
Totally. Yeah. So exactly.
Put your gas masks on, people, and you'll be, or oxygen masks, I don't know, whatever it is that protects you and makes you happy. But I really appreciate you being here, Leah. And again, everybody who's tuning in, follow her on Instagram, Your Modern Therapist. And my name is Sarah, the social worker, and I'll see you guys next time. Thank you, Leah.
Thank you.
Don't forget to like and subscribe to the Social Worker on all of our social media platforms, and like this video and share with your friends. Have a wonderful day, y'all. And remember, be intentional with your time and be kind to others.